boom, 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 boom. Generally not a good idea. God, don't remind me. I'm, well, what do you? So, he has like 8,000. Really good. You are asking moi? No, 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 no. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. All right.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we are ready to begin the meeting.
I would like to call the meeting to order at 3:31 of the Meridian Arts Commission. Our mission is to develop, advance, and nurture all facets of the arts to enhance the quality of life for Meridian residents and its visitors. So with that, let's do a roll call. Commissioner Taylor,
Present.
Commissioner Peters,
I'm here.
Commissioner Schofield,
Here.
Commissioner Griffith here, Commissioner Gayton,
Here.
Commissioner O'Leary,
Present.
Commissioner Cavanis Williams, Commissioner Vanucci, and Commissioner Schofield.
Here.
With that, I would like to ask for an adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The agenda has been adopted. Next is the approval of the minutes of the November 10th meeting. Could I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move we accept the minutes from the November 10th.
And
Meeting.
is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting minutes from the November 10th meeting are approved and adopted. Approval of the monthly financial statement. We need an approval for that. And could I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the financial statement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Financial statement is approved. Item number 3 under new business is review and make recommendations to the city council regarding the special traffic box wrap for 10 Mile and Pine with the artwork of the high school student Terry Binder, who was killed, and her family wished to have a box commemorated with her work.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Gaitan. I'd like to update that on that item. This is for a recommendation for, like you mentioned, there was a recent accident at the crosswalk intersection of 10 Mile and Pine near Meridian High. A high school student was struck by a truck and died. So the student's father reached out to the city and the arts and culture coordinator to inquire about putting his son's artwork in the nearby traffic box. At our meeting, our public art committee meeting, we reviewed the student's artwork, and there was several artworks that were submitted by his father. They were all great. One in particular that stood out to us is the one that we are recommending to use as a wrap at that intersection. Currently, there are 2 traffic boxes at that current location. One is already wrapped with a 2017 artwork. So the box that's next to it would be the smaller box, which is where we're recommending for the wrap to go. So the committee discussed sponsorship of the box, and current processes for sponsorship, people may choose to sponsor a box at a certain location. Though that process, people cannot propose new images that have not gone through a selection process. So the committee discussed the parent finding a way to pay for the vinyl wrap. So we talked about that. There could be some fundraising on behalf of his family, and the cost ultimately for the vinyl wrap is $591. This is not an action item. This is a recommendation. So the committee did not take a vote, but we would like to recommend the commission to propose the to install this artwork at that intersection.
So it's my understanding that the family is paying for the wrap in total, is that right?
Yes,
Correct.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, the father is happy to raise the funds and will pay for the cost of the installation.
And so this is the on your screen, on the screen, you can see the wrap that the Public Arts Committee is recommending for that wrap. Is there any discussion, questions, concerns about that? I think that was a nice choice. Not seeing the other ones, but this looks great. So what is we have, it's our task to make a recommendation, then to pass this on to the city council for approval. So may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, so moved.
And a second?
A second.
So the artwork as shown in the packet and is the recommendation, and the Arts Commission recommends then this to go on to be approved by the city council.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we had a motion and a second, but I don't think we had a vote.
We have to vote, I'm sorry. Oh, good grief. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I think this is.
It's time for the panic
Now it's time for the. Too many paintings got varnished today. All right, so we're recommending that the motion is made and approved to pass this on to city council for their approval of that traffic box being wrapped. So on to item number 4, discuss the public art signage, the mural plaques. Cassie, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. So the Public Art Subcommittee talked about doing mural signage and discussed ideas on what would be on the signage. I sort of, if you're able to see it in the lower right, was what we had initially discussed, and something that includes Braille. As I was looking at some other public art signage that's out there, that one on the top left on the screen is for a piece by Stephanie Inman in Boise, and it looks like a lot of their public art signage is sort of these signs that have a lot more text and information and are sort of designed for the piece. And also the other mural that we have, the Sector 17 mural at the Zamzows Mill, is kind of more in line with that. So I wanted to reconsider that. And then the signage company also had a more like a metal sign. That's that bottom left one. So I wanted to get some feedback and a little bit of discussion on what you, the commission, thinks the signage should look like. I also haven't had time to go and look at some of the other signage that we have. I believe that there's some signage on some of the public art projects, like at Heroes Park and the Champions Flame, and I'm just actually not sure what we have. So I want to make sure that we kind of keep it consistent and continue that. So open that up for discussion and thoughts, please.
I had a question. Is this just for like one specific like piece of art, or is this like for general?
Thank you, Commissioner Scoville. Yes, good question. This was initially, we were talking about this for the mural series. So there's one at Meridian Cycles. There's the one that was just that we had the ribbon cutting for at Unbound. This would also be for the one at the pool and the 2 at Tully Skate Park. So it's for multiple ones. And those are kind of the ones that we had talked about. But also probably want to continue for the piece that would be installed for 5 Mile Creek Pathway Trail Hub and kind of try to keep things consistent.
Madam Chair and Commissioners and Cassie, I think if I remember correctly from our conversation for the 5 Mile Creek Trailhead, I think we were talking about doing something a little bit different. I think Parks had raised the issue of the developer needing to contribute signage. I don't know if we get a choice if we go that route. That was sort of a mitigation thing for the developer of that neighborhood there. But in general, I like the idea of adding some more information or graphics to the signage. I think it's a great idea as long as it's still within our budget. It's one thing to do kind of a one-off, but when we've got, 4 or 5 pieces at a time, that can kind of add up. So do you have a sense, Cassie, for what the difference in pricing would be for just the plain signs that we got a quote for versus some of the other signage that you brought up?
Good question, Commissioner Peters. It's actually not a huge price difference to do those small signs versus larger signs with more text because they still have to fabricate it, have something for backing and do the installation. So each sign was kind of around like $200. And I believe that it could come out of the MAPS budget because it has to do with installing public art. It's kind of part of the public art.
This is Commissioner Gaitan. I'm with Commissioner Peters and like the idea of adding a little more information. I think initially we kept it to a 3-line item to include the Braille, to at least account for the Braille. And so if the cost is still in that similar price range, the information added would be a small statement, perhaps, of the artwork, some kind of information about the work itself.
Madam Commissioner, just one question. Would the larger signs also still include Braille?
Yes, I talked to the sign company and probably the Braille would not be every line because Braille does take up a lot of space. So probably the Braille part would just be the artwork title and the artist and the installation year.
Do we know how much more it would cost or have it all be Braille?
I didn't ask about the cost for the Braille. The Braille, so to kind of give you an example, like if you have, let's see, let me screen share that again. So in this one with the, oh, this isn't the one that includes the Braille. The ones on the bottom right, though, just that amount of information when they added the Braille took up more room than the text that's on there. The Braille is, it takes up quite a bit. So doing a paragraph of Braille would probably be 3/4 of the signage if we did all of the text.
So Cassie, do you know what the dimensions of these are?
Those smaller ones that we were looking at, because initially the Public Art Subcommittee was sort of talking about those smaller signage, kind of similar to how like museum labels are, like 4 by 6 inches, or what those ones were. That one that's on the mural, both of those top two examples, the one that's a Boise piece and then the one that's the mural at the Zamzows Mill, are probably more in the 8 by 12 inch range.
So commissioners that are on the Public Arts Subcommittee, is that the size that you were hoping to have for the plaques?
Madam Chair, the original size is 4 by 6s, name, title, and date, and a small logo. The new proposed, if we go with the more information, it would require a larger plaque. So I'm guessing like what Cassie mentioned, an 8 by 12, kind of a page size.
Is there any way that the Braille could be on the other side of the sign? I don't want to say the back of the sign, but
The other sign would be attached to the wall, so no.
and how much more would it be? I mean, so that if we did, with the taking of that, the bigger sign, and doing a mirror of that in Braille next to it, would it be a lot bigger than the?
Yes, it would be about 3 times the size of that sign. And I don't, my recommendation would not to be to go that route. I haven't seen that done for other public art signage in anything that I've seen. So I think it would be kind of an anomaly to do the entire text in Braille.
So what if we just do the artist's title and date and then the Braille is also there and then it all just matches up? And then we don't, I keep coming back to like having a QR code that would take to like the Meridian Arts page that then all that information, if you wanted a backstory, could be on, but then I think that's a little more complicated and who knows if that's going to be a thing in the future. And then if people don't know how to scan a QR code, we don't want to write directions on there. But I mean, maybe if when we install them and it's on our social media or on the website, like please find more information at our website or at their website for the artist. Rather than a big statement, if we're wanting to accommodate having the Braille end, have it written.
Well, Commissioner, I know we bought some time for this project, considering that the unveiling got moved and one of the murals is still in progress. So I'm thinking closer to springtime, so we could continue that discussion and finding the right plaque that we're gonna end up using.
Are any of us going to be designing these, or are we picking templates that they already have? How is that process gonna work?
That's a good question. I sort of imagined it would probably be me, although I would be happy to have help. I know Commissioner Gaitan has some graphic design experience.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, personally, I would be, I think the best thing to do would be probably an 8x10 or an 8x12 plaque. The name of the piece, Braille. Name of the artist, Braille. Installation date, Braille. And then a statement from the artist, maybe what inspired them, not to exceed 100 words. My experience with people who are blind or partially sighted, which is considerable, having worked at Braille Institute in Los Angeles for about 6 years. Most people who are blind or partially sighted, when they go to an exhibition or a place that has something like this, they are usually not traveling alone. They might have their service animal with them, but since most dogs don't read, they usually have a person with them. It's very, very rare to see. I mean, it's not absolutely impossible to imagine, but it's very rare to see a blind or partially sighted person with or without a dog in a museum situation or an art situation such as this. So for what it's worth, don't do a whole thing of Braille, because Braille, which is absolutely wonderful, is very bulky. Each letter is small and it's wide. Braille is not something that looks good in 6 point. Braille needs space. There has to be space between each letter, and it is slow to read because you, the blind or partially sighted person, has to read it one letter at a time. So it takes up a lot of space. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I've seen it done where the Braille is actually put like on top of the words. I don't know if that's an option, but if our plaque was like smooth and then you had the Braille on top of that, it wouldn't detract necessarily from the visible words that are on there. So that could be a space saving option.
I think it's the idea though, that to write that much in Braille is going to be, the Braille plaque is going to be like this and the little plaque is going to,
Oh, no, for sure. Just the title and whatnot. We wouldn't copy everything, but just having the title, you could put the Braille over the title. It saves that way.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the feedback. I think I'll plan on continuing to do a little bit more research and ask questions as needed and try to bring something back to the commission for review and work with the Public Art Subcommittee.
I don't know what the process is for establishing, so many art exhibits and stuff will have, you get the headphones and then you can listen to a narrative. I know that there's permanent installations that have such things. I think that might be something to I think you mentioned about a QR code or something that'll take you to either a verbal or written narrative of the work. But I think those, either one of those two plaques, they're attractive. They're even if they were 8x10, it's still a size that's not going to detract from the artwork. Do we need to make a recommendation on this, or is it just?
Madam Chair, more of a discussion at this point. It's not, there's nothing ready to quite like move forward on. So, but the feedback's really helpful. I think it seems like the consensus is that having more textual information would be beneficial to people. I think a lot of people like to get more information than just the title. So I'll look at signage like that. And then I liked how that one, both of those top ones that we looked at sort of match the piece in some way. So they might be a little more individually designed to match the pieces, which it takes a bit more work, but I think is people enjoy that and it's the work.
Also, I know that our logo is not allowed yet, but that would be a great spot for the public arts logo that were all these artwork sponsored by. Anyway.
Okay, commissioners, thank you for a good discussion about that. And I guess we'll visit that at a later point. Thank you. So number 5 is the review and making recommendations on the draft of the 2023 Call to Performing Arts project. Cassie, would you like to take that?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So this draft is quite a bit different than the first draft. Hopefully you all got a chance to look at it. Some of the bigger changes were, as we were looking at, as Legal and I looked at MAC's strategic plan and the history of the performing arts projects, it's really been geared towards youth theater. So this call is geared towards youth theater, needs to benefit Meridian youth in some way. So that's kind of not as open to like just all performing art projects, but ones that are youth theater oriented. Took out a lot of the it's more of a call and they kind of submit the proposal rather than filling out the application. Partly that's just my capacity in creating an application that functions. And we'll see how that goes this year. What other changes? And Patrick got a chance to review and Jessica got a chance to review. But if there's any other changes or things, I believe that it's ready to go forward at this point, but happy to discuss.
Yeah, I did review it and I think it looks fine. And Jessica, thank you for your editing prowess. Greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for putting that together. By the time I got it, I think it was really in great shape. I hardly had to do anything to it, but really appreciate your efforts in just putting the draft together. I think that's a lot of work to get all that information together. So really appreciate your effort on that.
Patrick, thank you very much for taking that on and put it together. Cassie for and editing it. And so I think that it's really an important factor that the call will be out there for companies that have youth affiliated in their or in their production. That's great.
And Madam Chair and Commissioners, I am planning on, as soon as this is ready to go out, I plan on sending it to the businesses who've reached out to us at some point asking about this and would love your help in advertising it. In my opinion, I would think that this would be really successful if we got 5 applications and we're able to award 2 or 3 awards would be great. Also, I don't know that we've discussed this before. The Meridian Arts Foundation might potentially be able to award additional funds to the applicants. So I will plan on just forwarding the applications to them and they can decide and sort of on their own with their funding, they might award additional funds.
So, did we need any action on that or just?
Yes, looking for approval, yes.
So if everybody's had a chance to read that, I would like to have that a motion to approve the draft as last written.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I move to approve the draft as last written.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the draft has been approved by the commission as written. Thank you. Next item is the number 6, the staff reports. Cassie, that's your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Have several things to update and report to you on. The ornament drop, hopefully you all are aware of the ornament drop, which is happening this weekend. I know many of you have made ornaments. If you're not able to make it down on Saturday, I will be going down. So if you wanted to drop off ornaments on the second floor in Parks and Rec, I'd be happy to disperse them for you. But you only have a little bit of time before that happens. If you are out and about and happen to take pictures of those, feel free to send them to me and I'll help kind of market them. That's all for the ornament drop. So concerts on Broadway. I talked to former Commissioner Leslie Malden and kind of discussed some of the bands, and High Street has always been really popular. So got them, I've talked to all these bands and they're ready to go as long as no objections from the Arts Commission. The Kings of Swing is a popular one that has been at the concerts in the past. Guilty Pleasure is a newer, they haven't been to the concerts before, but they played for the Eagle series. They're a little bit more dance pop genre, and Kings of Swing is more jazz and swing. And the High Street, and one thing to note is the High Street Band is now a summer group party band, formerly known as High Street. And before I move on, I just did want to open that up to discussion and any thoughts or comments about the bands.
Good job for getting them lined up in short order.
Great, thanks. I did notice in planning last year, everything needs to happen a bit sooner than maybe you think during the season, because bands and food trucks and the audio company, everybody gets booked. So doing it before the next year even starts is good. So I think I'll start drafting their agreements and I think they're ready to go and we'll be in good shape for next year. Thank you. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but the city has a new website. So if you go to meridiancity.org, there's kind of a cleaned up website. There's still a few things, and I'm trying to work with IT and update things. And the one kind of difference that I worked with IT on was moving a lot of the arts page and the history pages off of like the government commission pages, because I don't think that residents are going to look for arts, culture, and history things on the commission pages. So it did get moved. And then you can kind of see from just my screenshot grab, the Arts Commission is like linked to it, but it's not, it's the focus is on the arts, culture, and history sort of projects. One thing I just wanted to note is that the public art map, I'm very much aware that it's out of date. I did find out that the application that's used for that with the GIS mapping is out of date and needs to like have it needs to be created fresh. So I'm not sure how long that will be. I kind of have a ticket into the GIS to work on that, but I don't think it'll happen eventually, but it's in the works. Public art updates. I have some really good news, which is that City Council approved the agreements for both the projects that that the Arts Commission had last month. So Eileen Gay's water metrics is planned for installation in the summer, and Sector 17's mural at the pool is planned for installation in the spring. They just sent me their timeline. So I think it was mid-April for the mural. Yeah, which is before the pool opens. So the pool will open with a new mural. Yay. Update on the park's identity and theming roster. The scoring panel is still in the process of scoring those. And as a reminder, what that is, this roster is kind of for the park's identity projects, but they are kind of very creative, artistic sort of signage. And so we do get artists on these rosters. And we can have up to 10 people on there for 3 years. And it's not a guarantee of work for any of them. But the Arts Commission can use these artists that are on the roster to develop projects, or they can still use a separate RFQ, RFP process. Using artists on the roster simplifies a lot of the process and steps, and kind of can be a little bit of a shorter timeline, but it's not something that the Arts Commission has to use. I have, there's been some different public art projects sort of that I just wanted to bring up and talk about. I think that the Public Art Subcommittee needs to sort of prioritize some of these projects, but I just wanted to touch on some of them. So the Sidewalk Poetry Project, I'm going to skip over that, and I'm going to let Bobby talk about that one when he gets to the Public Art Committee update. But the second one on there, the transit shelters with Valley Regional Transit. So a former commissioner sort of saw this site that there was someone waiting at a bus stop that doesn't have a shelter, and sort of thought that'd be a great thing for a public art project. I sort of asked, wait, who does those bus stops, and figured out that it's Valley Regional Transit, so VRT. And they have done public art projects with the city of Boise, and they have a roster of artists. I don't know if that roster could be the same roster. I did talk to some of the people at Valley Regional Transit, and I have a meeting with them later to see what that could look like, to work with the Arts Commission to do art on the transit shelters here. Meridian only has 2 transit shelters. One is at 3rd and Pine, and the other one's at like the 10-mile sort of area. So, but potentially we could kick off an art project there. Usually that the art is, it's like a vinyl wrap and kind of just a single color negative space sort of wrap. So it might be an easier project to implement. Oh, and then the other stop that was brought up was the stop over by Lowe's, and it is a busier stop, so they might potentially put a transit shelter in at some point. So I will update you again after I speak with them. Sage Point. So you might remember that Sage Point had, that was one of the places that had applied to have a mural on their building, and sort of things fell through because of easement process, and maybe the building was being sold. But they did reach out again. They said they have one owner now that is interested in doing that. So we would have to, I kind of informed them we don't have anything in the works, but did have the public art budget increased, something that could be a potential project if the Arts Commission wants to go that direction. Would have to put out another like call to artists and do the whole thing. It's a long process. So, but something that we could do. Another project, Fuller Park, was brought up actually by Commissioner Peters as a great place for potentially an environmental art installation. And another project that I've been kicking around in my head is a rotating sculpture program, which is not something anyone in the Valley has, but I've seen in other cities. They'll have temporary sculptures for like 2 years. They pay the artists, I think, $2,000 somewhere in there generally, even though the artworks themselves probably, they would stay for sale, and artists can sell them for whatever they would normally sell them for. They'd be kind of smaller sculptures. And I saw this presented by another like arts and culture person. I can't remember what city it was, but she even shared the contract agreements and things with me. So that's another project. But this is a lot of projects. We do not have the capacity to do all the things as much as I would love to do all the things. So I just wanted to kind of throw those out there as potential projects. And at some point, not necessarily right now, but we probably need to prioritize what are the projects that we want to get completed.
So commissioners, there's the rotating sculpture program. Baker City, Oregon has something kind of like that. If anybody's been up that way, they have, I'm not sure if it was work that was just purchased outright, but they have all these African animals that are, some of them are life-size, some of them are scaled down, but they're all over town and they move around, so they have them chained to light posts and so on. But that's one thing that they do there. And then they also have a mural system that is like a rotating, it actually hangs over the facade of a building. And it's like a framework that, you can change work out and so on. It's kind of interesting. But they're rather innovative there with their art projects. So if you ever get a chance to go up and just snoop around the area, that's it's an interesting little town with some interesting art projects. Baker City.
One more thing, I think this is my last staff update thing. This is a project I wanted to just bring to the commission. This is not an Arts Commission project. This is a parks signage project. But wanted to fill you in and ask for feedback potentially and see what you think. This is for Seasons Park, and the current signage at Seasons Park is kind of this sad little sign there. This is a residential park. It's a small sort of neighborhood. And here are some of the, this was developed, there were a few other designs, but this is kind of following with like seasons sort of theme, and those materials. It's like this 3-form, it's like an acrylic, and then they made the outside frame is like metal. I think the next slide has, yeah. So the outside frame is a powder coated aluminum frame, and then the leaves sort of shapes are that 3-form material where light shines through, so they're translucent. And there's grooves cut into the leaves. And then they kind of had 3 sort of arrangements, a more vertical one, and it's 16 feet high, the vertical one. And then the one that's more horizontal. And along with the signage on those is something to go into the pavilion. And they had 2 different kind of options for those. So any feedbacks from the Arts Commission on that project? And that's my last item.
I just think it's interesting. I like any chance we have to update some visuals in the area. So, yeah, I think they both look great, and they'd be probably welcomed by their neighborhood guests.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassie. And number 7 is the Initial Point Gallery update. Natalie?
Okay, hopefully everyone can get a chance to get upstairs and look at our new show. It is the Bosco Boise Open Studios Collective. I just went up there today and it's really great. There's just a wide variety of art. There's fiber art, there's watercolor, oils, everything, you know, pen and ink. It's just, and then all the 3D as well. So it's very varied and a lot of great work up there. The reception is December 16th. So next Thursday, Lizzie will be our host. Thanks, Lizzie.
Friday.
Oh, Friday, excuse me. Next Friday, everyone come and show up if you'd like. And then just as a reminder to have, we have March and August available next year for hosting. So if anyone would like an additional day or hasn't yet signed up, if you could add your name to the list, we would love to have you host. It's very easy and it only takes a couple hours. So you can fill in the email, the Google Doc, or email myself or Cassandra and we'll add you to the list. But besides that, I think the gallery looks great, and thanks for all coming up to see it.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'd just like to add a personal note on Bosco exhibit. Mary Arnold is a very particularly styled artist. And I think personally, and probably I shouldn't be saying this, but I think the best single piece in the entire show is Mary Arnold's purple sheep. It is amazingly, fantastically wonderful. So anyway, go, and it's, the Bosco show is always absolutely amazingly fantastic. I mean, second only to TBA, of course, but just get there, get to know those artists, ooh and ah, and it's so important for artists, for commissioners, and bring your friends and, you know, whatever. because Bosco is a big force and a very important force in this community. So get to the reception, meet and greet, and support our local artists. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor, and I will pass that on to Mary. Thank you, Natalie. Item number 8 is the Public Art Committee report. Commissioner Gayton, would you like to enlighten us?
Yeah, Madam Chair, our last meeting, we discussed a couple items. One of the discussions took most of our meeting time, which was the sidewalk poetry project discussion. Before I get into that, next month's Public Art Committee has been canceled, and we'll follow up in January. So,
This month.
sorry, this month's December meeting has been canceled. We are in December. And so we'll see each other in the new year. So, and back to the meeting for our Public Art Committee, we invited the Aaron Dyson of Public Art in St. Paul. And so we held a virtual conference with him, and he presented in that time, he presented a lot of things, but he presented the logistics of what it takes to put together this sidewalk poetry project in St. Paul. And a lot of the information he shared is very, first of all, he was real enthusiastic. And so he had our attention. We wanted to know more at the end, but he clearly stated a lot of the details. And so what he discussed is a two-part process, and it's the gathering of the poems from the city, and also the production on what it takes to get them on these sidewalks. And both of them had really good information. The St. Paul Sidewalk Project is a project that it is coordinated with the city's updating of the sidewalks, which is a bigger city, so they have a lot of sidewalks that often yearly get updated. And so this project coincides with that timeline. And so that's kind of was one of the things that stood out from how they do this project. But overall, it was a great presentation. I think it has a lot of potential. Like I said, Aaron Dyson was really informative. The committee then discussed the project and how that would work here in Meridian, being Meridian is a newer community, so we don't update our sidewalks. But it's a great idea, and the sidewalks here are managed by the Ada County Highway District. So the project would be more plausible in the newer construction areas and pathways. Our city is currently looking for a new pathways manager. So Kim Warren has moved on to a new job. So we would have to make sure we get support from the new manager if we end up moving towards this particular project. So the committee is interested in adapting it to Meridian, but it still has a lot of more discussions on how the best way to approach this project would be. But we're still discussing. We've decided to kind of put it on a hold, or per se, and just think about as we move forward on ways how if we can include it in our city, and that was it. We're kind of in this marinated mode. That's what we call it. But again, like if you have any other, if any of the commissioners would like more information, we took a lot of notes on the details of what it takes. There is a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of coordinating. It does require paying a lot of these coordinators and the artists. And so there would have to be a budget set aside for some of these things in order for them to happen. This is what how St. Paul does it, and this is how they would recommend it. And these are part of the discussions we would have to have if we implement the project here in Meridian. So that took up most of the hours. Like I said, it was a good informative presentation. The other part that we discussed, which we have already addressed, is the traffic box project from the high school student. And we had some updates on the public art projects, which Cassie has already brought up and addressed. And that was it for public art.
Thank you, Commissioner Dayton. I have a question. In your committee, have you guys chatted at all about different ways to, incorporate the art of the word, so to speak, and, poetry or something besides concrete?
That actually was discussed briefly. What if, if sidewalks weren't an option, could it be used in other areas? The idea of words was just at least from Aaron experience doing this in St. Paul. Just the way he worded it, it was just kind of it's a good experience. It's an awesome experience for the city to come across an uplifting message out of nowhere, and it becomes part of the city speaking back to them. And the way he just shared that for us was we thought was really cool. So after the meeting, we discussed perhaps other options on if we can't use sidewalks, what would that look? And it's still up in discussion. We haven't really thought of anything, but it's one of those things that if anyone has ideas for that, we are welcome to hear them out.
Right. It would be great to incorporate the art of the word. Maybe in future mural projects, there could be a collaboration with a poet and a visual artist in that respect.
Madam Chair, it also makes me think of, it might be something we could incorporate, the events committee could incorporate into concerts on Broadway with opening acts of spoken word.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah. And so there's another assignment for Cassie.
Yeah, no, I think those are great. We did talk about if we move towards a poetry-based project, we would have to work with our community and our writers that are out there. We talked about the log cabin in Boise perhaps being a resource, or the little cabin in Boise as a resource, talking to professors, talking to literature teachers, and just kind of getting community involvement and getting kind of that buzz per se to get these poets to come out and start sharing. And if there was an outlet like concerts on Broadway, I mean, it's kind of like doing open mic. That would be a good opportunity.
Thank you, Bobby. The last item on the agenda is item number 9, Arts and Human Rights. December is the Universal Human Rights Month, and I believe Patrick has put together something for us.
Yeah, Cassie had mentioned and sent out a notice that to do memos, and the human rights one, when you mentioned December, that kind of struck me. And as I started to do a little research, came up with elements that were on it, and it was kind of one of those timing things. After I sent the initial one into Cassie, and I was driving back from a meeting in Boise, and there was a piece on NPR about an artist in Germany. His name is Gunter Demnig, and in the memo, that's the first one at the top, and they're called Stumbling Stones. And there was they did an interview with a author of an article in the Atlantic magazine, and it really struck me of the in a sense the power of arts, and a great example of the arts and human rights. And so I just wrote down this brief kind of descriptive that's a part of both the article, and then I think there are 2 articles in there in the NPR interviews. But it's a project that was started in 1996 by German artist Gunter Demnig, whose father fought for Nazi Germany in the war, and he began placing the stones in the sidewalks of neighborhoods in Berlin. Initially, Deming's installations received little attention, but after a few months, when authorities discovered the small memorials, they deeded them an obstacle to construction work and attempted to get them removed. The workers were tasked with pulling them out, and the workers refused. And in 2000, Deming's, and there's the German word Stolperstein or stumbling stones, installations began to be officially sanctioned by local governments throughout Europe. And today, there are more than 90,000 stumbling stones have been set out in streets and sidewalks of 30 European countries. And together they make up the largest decentralized memorial in the world. And it struck me as what a great example of the power of an artist and public art to galvanize and bring people together. And it's a great article in the Atlantic. I did have in the memo, there's one of the links is to a NPR interview with him, and it's a short one. They didn't have the link up yet to the one I heard in the radio, which was about 20 minutes long. But his perspective in the article is about what America could learn about this, or about slavery and Native Americans in our history. And the thing that struck me the most is how the kind of the comments or statements that were about that one in specific, that the power, the impact it had on people, and the questions that arose in their minds about history, and I just thought it was something to share and make available. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So, Cassie, do you want to talk about your idea with with continuing on month to month with,
Yeah, so Madam Chair, I think our youth commissioner is up for doing this in January. And it was suggested that maybe this become sort of a monthly thing. Commissioners could rotate. But that's up to the commission if you would like to make that an expectation or not.
thank you. All right, with that, the next meeting is scheduled for January 12th. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, so moved, right on time. Thank you.
Second,
Madam Chair, I second.
all in favor?
I-
Opposed? All right, the meeting is now adjourned. And I just want to thank all the commissioners for another successful year of work. You should be proud of what you do. And Cassie's, yeah, I mean, the public art that's out there, yay. Thank you all.
We're still in the meeting. We're still streaming. It's recorded. Thank you, all of you, and happy holidays.